Manage your money on your time with 24/7 digital banking on the PenFed mobile app. Easily make payments, transfer funds, and deposit checks through mobile deposit.
That's music to my ears.
Learn more at penfed.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
UTC Minneapolis St. Paul, FM 107.5, K298CO Minneapolis, Intelligent Radio.
With SRN News, I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. President Trump has warned that limited strikes against Iran are possible, even as the country's top diplomat says Tehran expects to have a proposed deal on its nuclear program in the next few days. Military affairs analyst, retired Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis doubts that Iran will abandon its nuclear aims.
Will the Iranians give up their nuclear program? No.
But meanwhile, Senator Tom Cotton says Iran should carefully accept U.S. demands.
These are pretty reasonable requests by the United States and by Israel that Iran no longer export terror and violence and chaos. But, of course, they've been doing that for 47 years. So color me skeptical about their willingness to change their spots at this late hour.
And Senator Cotton of Arkansas made his comments this week to the Salem Radio Network. You'll find more of these stories at srnnews.com.
Mike Gallagher isn't surprised by Trump's actions.
Watching the people who pretended to support Trump bail on him over the issue of tariffs. You got Republicans who are basically hanging Trump out to dry. I'm so fascinated by that because, of all people, Republicans should know that Trump is delivering exactly what he promised to deliver.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 8 on AM 1280, The Patriot. Intelligent Radio.
Zero Res's Month of Love sale. Your carpet is one of the biggest investments in your home, but it's also the biggest air filter in your home. If your carpet hasn't been professionally cleaned, you are breathing unhealthy levels of nasty dirt, dander, bacteria, and germs. Lucky for you, Zero Res is going to spread the love to you and your home. Get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned starting at just $119 and take $75 off your air duct cleaning. Book online at ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the 1280 AM and 107.5 FM, The Patriot Special.
Hey, Scott Jennings here. I want to personally invite you to join me, along with my friend Mike Gallagher, for a powerful week on the Gulf of America cruise, November 14th through November 21st, 2026. That's this year. We'll cruise through crystal blue waters, visit incredible ports like Half Moon Cay and Cozumel, and enjoy the first-class hospitality of a luxury cruise ship. All week long, you'll have time with us. You'll do meet and greets, photo opportunities, Q&A sessions, and the chance to hear behind-the-scenes stories that you can't or won't here on the air. You'll also be immersed in inspiring keynote speeches and in-depth sessions as we enjoy real connection designed to strengthen your resolve as we mark the 250th anniversary of our great nation. Don't miss this. Sign up today. Look forward to cruising the Caribbean with like-minded people who care deeply about our country. Reserve your cabin today. Text CRUISE to 94878, 94878, or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click the cruise banner to sign up today.
Our Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith and Representative Brad Finstead are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
President Trump reflects on his first year and lays out his plans for the country in the State of the Union address.
The state of our union is stronger than ever before.
What will be on his agenda? And will it include a confrontation with Iran? Don't miss a word of the President's State of the Union address. Tuesday night. Coverage begins at 8.
Listen to the State of the Union address Tuesday starting at 8 p.m. on AM 1280 The Patriot.
If it was 1990, you'd be listening to your favorite radio station on a bulky boombox that burns through D batteries faster than you can say, "You've got mail." Thankfully, it's the 21st century, and there are much better alternatives. For example, just ask Alexa to tune in.
Alexa, play The Patriot Minneapolis.
It's time to throw out that old beeper and get with the times. Listen to your favorite AM 1280 The Patriot hosts in high quality with Alexa and Amazon Echo.
This radio station is always on, but sometimes you need more content that you can take with you anywhere. That's why we invented the SalemPodcastNetwork.com. You'll find all the great hosts on this radio station, plus a few more, like Charlie Kirk, Dinesh D'Souza, Trish Regan, Jenna Ellis, and Dennis and Julie. There is literally no end to what they can teach you. It's like radio on demand. And just like radio, it's always on. Find out what you're missing. Download the app, SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
The following pre-recorded program is paid for by Political Pitchforks.
Okay, let's begin.
Welcome to another episode of Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot. Your co-host, Jeremy Munson, a former state representative, here with Susan Sjogren-Smith, a longtime political activist, and we are pleased to introduce you to Kristin Robbins, who is a candidate for governor here in the great state of Minnesota. Kristin and I served together in the Minnesota House. We were actually freshmen together. Kristin, I was looking you up, and in my Google search or whatever, I brought in my Google photos, and there were photos of you and I and Lisa Damuth curling in Chaska right after the election when you were elected. And so we went up and spent an afternoon curling with our freshman class. It was a fun time. And as we're watching the Winter Olympics, I remember how much I really enjoyed the sport of curling, because you can actually drink a beer while you're doing that Olympic sport.
I think the three of you should sign that, and then you should donate it to one of the fundraisers for the party.
That would be great. So welcome, Kristin. Please introduce yourself to the listening audience who's not familiar with you or your work at the Capitol. Kind of explain your in a brief history in the legislature and why you're running for governor.
Sure. Yes. That was a fun curling outing we did with Greg Bowe. I'm in my fourth term as a legislator. I represent Western Maple Grove and Western Hennepin County, and I currently am chair of the Fraud Committee, and I also serve on taxes, higher ed, and have been, involved in a lot of the tax and regulatory policy at the legislature over the years.
Okay. One of the things that I really appreciate about your candidacy for governor is that because you represent this purple district in the suburbs of the metro, and it's what Republicans talk about every cycle. We need to win the suburbs. We need to win over suburban moms and moderate Republicans. And then we run candidates who are very conservative or from deep red districts. You represent a very purple district. You've proven that you can win this district. Do you see a lot of strength with delegates as you're talking about your electoral wins as a Republican in the suburbs?
I think so. I mean, the goal is to win the general election, not the endorsement. And so if people want to win and get the governor's office back after 20 years, that's what we need to focus on, is who can actually win, who can beat Amy Klobuchar. And President Trump won my district by 0.4%, and I won by 14 points without compromising my conservative values. So just because I'm a suburban mom doesn't mean that I'm not conservative. My record is very strong, but I am a suburban mom. And so, just able to connect with my constituents. They know I care about them. They know I work really hard on their behalf. And so that's why I'm able to put up good numbers in the suburbs, which is what we need to win.
Yeah. What else you need to put up strong numbers for is fundraising. I was impressed by reading to the campaign finance reports. You had a significant haul, I think, over $500,000 raised last fall. And you don't seem to have a real high burn rate like some other the candidates do.
I'm a fiscal conservative in my real life as well as in my policy life.
That's great. I mean, it does take a lot of money to win this race. It's also going to take the work of outside groups who will likely come in and support whoever our nominee is in the fall. But because we have such a late primary, my fear as a delegate is that we're going to have this mid-August primary between 3 or 4 or 5 strong contenders for the race, and we're going to be so fractured after the mid-August primary that we're not going to be able to focus and win the general, that this outside air support that's going to come in from D.C. and other groups isn't going to be able to participate until so late in the election when early voting starts just 2 weeks after the primary. You've said that you're not going to abide by the endorsement. Do you feel like you are connecting with a lot of delegates to be a contender for the endorsement, or do you think there's not going to be an endorsement at all?
So I'm trying. So in the fall, I was out everywhere, all around the state. I can't remember the exact number, but I think so far we've been to 31 or 32 counties. And I spent most of my time in greater Minnesota because now that we're back in session, I'm a little more tethered to the metro, as you know. So now I'm doing more here in the metro. And people, I think the delegates are frustrated at some level that I'm not abiding. But as I always tell people, like, I am the grassroots. I am more grassroots than any of the other candidates in this race. I've been a delegate since I was in college. I was the head of college Republicans at Bethel. I've been a precinct captain for years. I have door knocked and phone banked and put up lawn signs for candidates for decades before I ran for office. So I'm the most grassroots of all the candidates. But the reality is we haven't endorsed a candidate who's won a general in 20 years. And so I feel like the honest thing to say is that I'm going to look and see how the endorsement process goes. I'm certainly trying for it. But if we endorse the candidate who probably can't win in the general, that's why I'm staying in. Because we have to put up a candidate who can win in the general. And so I've always said I'll stay in the race as long as I think I'm the best candidate to win in the general. And I would love to get the endorsement. It would help a lot. But the prize is winning the governor's race. And we cannot forget that as Republicans.
I want to ask you a question about this issue of the metro versus outstate, because I think we often talk about it and people make assumptions about what that means. For me, actually, I think that one of the biggest travesties we have is we have a whole group of Christian faithful voters that don't vote across the state because our candidates that we put forward actually don't really embrace those values or actually run counter to them. Actually, they're more libertarian, that kind of hardcore conservative. So I think that we don't necessarily effectively reach out to those voters, even in places like 3 and 5 and 4, those CDs. And I know there are plenty of Christians. I talk to them. They just aren't engaged in the party politics anymore because they feel like it's too liberal in the metro area. So I think we've lost those voters. And I think you are a person, one of the best candidates that can bring those people back to the table. And I think that is actually critically important, in my view of the situation. And I thank you for not hiding your values and your beliefs, because I think that you don't do that. And I think it's important. So to me, I think we have to be really careful with discounting the fact also that we have a tremendous amount of election manipulation and fraud. We do have that in our state. And that has been going on easily since 2008. I saw it firsthand in 2008. I've been watching it grow since then. And so we can't have an honest discussion about the loss of elections over the years without also addressing the need to make sure our voter rolls are accurate and up to date, that the absentee ballot boards are held accountable, that the public has access to observe those processes, and that actually that hopefully more people will vote not early, but vote on Election Day, because that allows the most accurate voting. So I'd like you to comment a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, we absolutely need voter integrity, election integrity. And as governor, I would support voter ID, getting rid of the ballot drop boxes. We don't need 45 days of early voting. We do need provisional balloting. Like, there's a lot of things as governor I would do. But until we get the governor's office, we're not going to get those things done. So that's why winning the governor's race is got to be our focus. And in the short run, I do think there are things we can do. Pam Altendorf is doing a fantastic job on this issue right now, getting data from Hennepin County and some of the other counties and showing where there's been problems. I think I'm hoping that we will get to some resolution in the court case, so our voter rolls will be given to the feds so that we can clean them up before the election. It absolutely has to happen. We have to make sure that people are voting in multiple states. We have to make sure dead people aren't on the rolls. We have to make sure non-citizens aren't on the rolls. So all those things have to happen. But in the meantime, to your initial point, we need to swamp the vote. Like, everybody has to turn out. And when I'm in greater Minnesota, people always say, oh, well, everything, our vote doesn't count. I'm like, no, you guys are totally missing the whole project here. We need greater Minnesota to turn out at the same level as a presidential year. Like, turn out as much for the governor's race as you turned out for Trump. And then we need to pull up our numbers in the suburbs, which is where I think I can really help the team.
Yeah,
we're really excited about that, and I've been encouraging people to go out and to door knock people, get them to sign up for early voting, absentee voting, and then follow up with another door knock when they get the ballot. My friend Cliff Maloney from Pennsylvania started this group called the PA Chase that helped deliver about 150,000 early votes for Donald Trump, larger than the margin that they won by in that state. So that's fantastic. We need to do more. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more with Kristin Robbins, a candidate for governor here in Minnesota. You're listening to AM 1280, The Patriot.
The American people have become increasingly polarized along political lines and are now more visibly and vocally divided than ever. Because election integrity and security has never been more important to the stability of our republic, there can be no excuses for inconsistent, non-transparent, and non-secure election processes. Today, an ever-increasing number of American citizens are demanding voter ID using an official government ID, shorter election periods, or a return to a single election day, the banning of electronic voting systems that cannot be secured, the use of a paper roster at the polling places, the elimination of voter registrations in the 10 days before an election, that mail-in and absentee ballots be counted in public at the precinct of the voter, and a return to hand-counting ballots. The 2026 elections will determine whether the conservative movement will continue to lead the restoration of America's exceptionalism. Visit politicalpitchforks.com to get informed and engaged.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-555-2085. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-555-2085. 800-555-2085.
Undocumented residents, unlawful entrants, illegal migrants. There are many terms to describe citizens of other countries who entered the United States without permission or overstayed their visa. The Trump administration's effort to enforce immigration law has created a firestorm of debate on all sides of this issue. Americans must begin to ask themselves simple questions. Do borders matter? How many of the men who crossed into our country illegally have left families behind to come to the U.S.? How has illegal migration affected our schools, our public safety, our prison system? Should Minnesotans who struggle to access health care for their own families be required to pay for health care for non-citizens? Trump's self-deportation plan is an answer to the question, how do we fix this problem? The U.S. government pays the self-deporter travel expenses to leave and provides a $1,000 stipend after they arrive in their country. Let's encourage the use of this program. Let's save America. Visit us online at politicalpitchforks.com.
Okay, let's begin.
Welcome back to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot. This is Jeremy Munson here with Susan Sjogren-Smith, interviewing Kristin Robbins, Representative Kristin Robbins, Chair Robbins, who's running for governor in Minnesota. And in the first segment, we talked about, we introduced her to listeners. I do have to ask her something. I'm running for state senate, and I want to serve in the majority. Part of having a majority in St. Paul is making sure that we win 2 state senate seats and 1 House seat, kind of a net gain in each body. Senator Warren Limmer announced he's not running for re-election. He's in a very tough district. Kristin, he's your senator. And we need somebody that can win that district. I'm told that having a woman run for that district is going to automatically help us like 5 points at the ballot box. We have to ask, you've got a huge war chest. You could win that district. If you don't win the endorsement, would you slide in to run for state senate and join me in the Senate?
You know, I want what's best for the state. Obviously, that's why I'm doing this. And I think I'm the best candidate to win the governor's race. And that's why I'm in that lane, because without the governor's race, it's not just about the office of the governor, as you know. It's about judicial appointments. It's about who's running all these agencies. It's about changing the culture. So we have a customer service culture on permitting, and we have a no fraud, no excuses culture. Yeah, so there's a lot at stake besides just the chair of the governor's office. And clearly, we absolutely have to get majorities in the House and Senate. We need to pull our state back up from the brink on a lot of things, and we need those bodies to be in Republican hands. So I think I'm very bullish on winning that. If I win the governor's race, we will have the coattails to also flip one seat in the House and one seat in the Senate and get those majorities.
Yeah, I certainly don't see a path for us to win the governor's race while losing the House and Senate.
Exactly.
I feel like we're going to win. We're going to win everything. But if the Democrats did pull it off so that they had a tie in the Senate, I know that they're going to block everything from happening for at least the first 2 years until they can flip the House. So I hope that you will help in that district to win whoever we nominate for state Senate in your district, because that is be great if we could win that seat.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about fraud. You've made national headlines in the last couple weeks being out in Congress and testifying in Congress. Can you share some stories about your testimony or some of the people that you met before or after that you testified?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity to get out there and really expose for the nation what is going on in Minnesota. I think some of us who are so deep in this know it and are so familiar with all the different vectors of fraud and all the ridiculous things going on. But to bring it to the national audience was a great opportunity. And it was a great opportunity to meet people that I've only ever met on seen on Fox News, So taking their questions and chatting with them, Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and, in the House, James Comer, he's very impressive. Adam Gill, he's a new rising star. They're all a great bunch. And then, of course, in the House, our congressional delegation came, and they were incredibly helpful to us. The Democrats, of course, didn't bother to show up and defend Tim Walz, but all the House Republicans were there, and they were fantastic in their questioning, really getting to the heart of the issues. And I think what people misunderstand is that it's not just the big splash of being in D.C., it's the relationships you develop with the staff over the time, so that I continue to work with the House Oversight and Senate Judiciary Committee staff on different fraud questions that they're having and things that they're pursuing. So it's a long-term relationship that is to the benefit of Minnesota that I went out and did that.
Well, one of the things that I hear constantly from delegates as I'm out campaigning is they know about the fraud. We don't need any more audits. What we need is people being arrested. What do you think the chances are of Tim Walz and Keith Ellison or some high-ranking appointees in the Walz administration for being arrested yet this year?
I'm not sure. So people always say that to me too, right? And as you know, as legislators, we don't have law enforcement authority. So we uncover all this fraud. I get the investigations as far as I can. But as a legislator, I don't have access to bank records or cell phone records or computers or those kind of things. So we turn it over to people with subpoena power, people with law enforcement authority. And once it's in their hands, I don't know what's going on. But my hope is that they are getting to the bottom of this, interviewing layers of witnesses who will have the pinch points of who knew about it, when, and what their culpability is. For criminal arrests, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So criminal standards is a much higher standard than preponderance of the evidence, which I think we have in spades. So we'll see. But I know the law enforcement partners are working on it. And so I just encourage the public. I know it's hard to be patient, but we as legislators, our job doesn't lean into that side of it. And we're just like everybody else waiting to see what they come up with.
So other committees in the House have subpoena power, but am I right that the fraud committee was not granted subpoena power?
So it's just effectively not subpoena power. So if we had a 6-3 majority, that would be enough to get the subpoena. But because we're 5-3, and unless we got a Democrat with us, we wouldn't get it.
Good luck.
And so far, they've stuck to their guns.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, because I feel like if the people of Minnesota are so upset about fraud, and when it comes down to asking for subpoena records that would prove more fraud, the pressure on those Democrats in your committee to vote to protect these fraudsters would be just overwhelming. Like I feel like they would have to just say no. Of course, we should want the truth. So I imagine then, if as chair of the committee, you're going to be calling that vote multiple times this session to make those Democrats vote against subpoenaing records.
So we'll see. I mean, I have multiple data requests out to DHS. I think at last count it was 7 that they've ghosted me on. So we'll see. I think the best use of the committee time is to not get into all these subpoena fights, because we know what the outcome is going to be. The best use of the committee time is to keep exposing the fraud. We have uncovered new vectors of fraud almost every hearing. I'm the only committee that kept meeting during interim. Just in our December hearing, we exposed for the first time adult day services and assisted living. In January, I don't know if you saw that one. It was ridiculous. The head of MMB, Minnesota Management and Budget, came in, and she has statutory responsibility for all of the internal controls in the state agencies. And she testified that she doesn't view that as her responsibility. She views her responsibility is not accountability, but to come alongside and support them so they can be successful. So when I asked her, what tools do you need? I will carry any bill. Like, what do you need to make sure these internal controls are followed? She said she didn't think they needed any more tools. She just wants more support for them. Like, that's why we need a new governor, because it's a culture. It's a culture that doesn't want or expect accountability.
I'm just blown away by how inept the government is. Back in 2018, we heard testimony. My first year in the legislature, we heard testimony about the fraud in childcare, and they said over half of the $240 million being spent at that time was being stolen. And so I wrote a bill to end CCAP. We got 9 legislators in the House and Senate to co-sponsor it. Of course, that didn't get a hearing, but we had majorities in both chambers at that time. It's just we need to just shut it down until they can prove that it's legitimate, instead of trying to force these moderate controls to tweak things around the edges. There's so much fraud going on, and then there's fraud. I know that we saw this. United Health Group, Optum Health, there was somebody that was sentenced today for fraud within Optum. Yes. And this is the group that Tim Walz put in charge of kind of monitoring fraud for so many of these programs. There's fraud on the fraud. It's just, we don't even know who to trust anymore.
That's why we need a wholesale cleaning of the House, right? That's what a governor could do. New commissioners, new assistant commissioners, new deputy commissioners, and standardized internal controls where if not a dollar goes out until you check, like, the most basic things Minnesotans want us to check. Does the provider exist? Are they eligible to provide services? Does the recipient exist? Like, so much of this was pure fake recipients, fake meals. Like, it was absolute made up garbage.
So one of the
nepotism, people that were relatives of the people that were authorizing millions, when they oversee distributing millions of dollars to autism centers, and then they maybe my cousin should start an autism center so I can send him checks for $5 million a month.
Right. Well, stay tuned. Next Monday. So there was another indictment in Feeding Our Future yesterday. And that person is someone that I am already planning to talk about in my hearing on money on autism centers. So a new Feeding Our Future defendant as of yesterday also owns an autism center, also is involved in assisted living. Like, it's the same pattern over and over.
And probably a transportation company as well. So
probably. I can't remember the details.
So I do think that one of the things I just want to be sure that we talk about is this issue. I understand you're not wanting to get too in the weeds with subpoena power, but we have really failed, I think, as a party to bring forward good bills that are logical, common sense bills that would be supported by Republicans and actual traditional Democrats. And we don't bring those bills forward, or they get stalled and we don't fight about it. And we have to do a better job at forcing the Democrats' hand, because the voters don't know what they're voting on when there aren't votes to prove what they voted on, right? So us avoiding a fight because it wastes time actually is the point. It shouldn't be wasting time, because these are common sense solutions like voter ID. Everybody, there isn't a large enough group of Democrats opposed to that to not pass that in Minnesota. But we won't even fight about it. We're not going to fight about it. And we have to fight about it.
I think we're going to fight about that.
Yeah. So, but I
hope we fight about that. But to the point in my committee, so I think I'm going to drop 5 or 6 fraud bills, and we are going to get votes on them.
Good.
And they're common sense bills. Like one of them, like as you guys, I'm sure are well aware, there were some state employees who backdated and falsified documents.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's not a crime in Minnesota. So now I have a bill to make it a crime, and we are voting on that bill. And I have another bill about embezzlement. And so we are trying to
Kristin, when
them on the record.
We got to cut to a break, but when we get back, we'll talk about these bills that you're introducing. You're listening to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 Patriot.
249 years ago, a group of very brave patriots initiated a profound experiment in hopes the people, when provided opportunity, would rise to preserve the freedom and liberty granted to them by God. The 1776 Declaration of Independence marks the official beginning of the global war against America, because America stokes the fire for freedom that fuels the spirit in every one of God's children. Our founders laid out self-evident truths for the world to embrace. We are all created equal in the eyes of God, and each of us has the same unalienable rights to pursue the life we choose, to live free, with our liberty unchallenged, to pursue happiness by chasing the dreams of our choosing. Americans must begin to unite around a simple principle. America is providentially the greatest country ever created and offers the best and last hope for the people globally. We must teach our children the truth about the founding of this country, which was conceived in the stone-filled fields of history, where the children of God toiled their lives away under despots who cared not whether they lived or died. As we approach the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, may we, patriots from sea to shining sea, stand united and once again pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This message brought to you by Political Pitchforks.
Snow and ice. Hi, this is Lee with the Kingdom Builders.
Hey, this is Matthew with the Kingdom Builders. You've heard us talk about roofing, gutters, siding, and windows.
And hopefully some encouraging talk about the Bible and our Creator.
But did you know that we also remove snow and ice from roofs?
If you have concerning amounts of snow and ice buildup, we've invested in equipment that can safely remove ice from your roof with steam. Please call us at 612-900-9166 or look us up at thekingdombuilders.com.
Since your child spends most of their day at school, it's important to consider the influence a school has on their life. In a recent national survey, more than 70% of educators said that students misbehave more now than before the pandemic. Christian schools work to foster kindness, respect, and responsibility every day. Would you like a Christian education for half price? Check out schools like Foundations Christian Academy, Laurel Community School, and Heritage Christian Academy on TwinCitiesTuitions.com to apply for half-price tuition today.
Hi, I'm Susan Sjogren Smith, and I want to personally invite you to join me every Saturday at 9 a.m. on AM 1280 The Patriot for Political Pitchforks.
Okay, let's begin.
In a world full of noise and spin, we're cutting through the clutter to bring you real news, honest opinions, and bold conservative commentary you won't hear anywhere else. Whether it's the economy, education, free speech, or the state of our republic, we go deep. We ask the tough questions, and we don't back down. Our team features voices from across the conservative spectrum, offering a range of ideas and perspectives that put principles over politics. This isn't about echo chambers. It's about empowering you with facts, context, and confidence so that you can think for yourself. Because informed citizens don't follow, they lead. So set your alarm, grab your coffee, and turn up the dial. That's Political Pitchforks every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on AM 1280 The Patriot. And you can always find us online at politicalpitchforks.com, where there are links to our Facebook, Instagram, and X accounts.
Okay, let's begin.
Welcome back to Political Pitchforks. You're listening to AM 1280 The Patriot. I am Susan Smith. You're here with Jeremy Munson and also Kristin Robbins, who's running for governor. And I would like to ask you about your stance on a faith office. The White House has a faith office. We have a faith office nationally that works with support of the government to strengthen, families and protect religious liberty. And we know that in Minnesota, religious liberties have been under attack, actually. The Democrats have openly stated that they've tried to eliminate liberties in various bills they've put forward, et cetera. And I'm interested in your position on creating a faith office in Minnesota for religious organizations to be able to have resources and support when they do the work that's protected under our Constitution.
Yes, I'd certainly be open to it. I think it's very important to protect our religious liberties, and that's something I've worked on and off for a long time. many years ago, I was on a board for Religious Liberty. That was a national organization after one of the Bush administrations. So that's been something that I've always cared about and fought for, and protecting our private schools. We had a bill on that last year to make sure, private schools could continue without interference. So that's an incredibly important aspect of our country and our culture, and we need our faith communities to be protected and be able to fully live out their faith in the public square.
Great. So Kristin, I've got a question for you. This week, I am filing a lawsuit against the state of Minnesota with several small business owners to overturn the paid family medical leave, which was pushed on all businesses, not just, obviously there's thousands of Minnesota businesses that have some type of paid family medical leave already in place privately, either self-funded or buying insurance on it. Some charge their employees, some don't. But to force it on all businesses, including mine, self-employed, I'm the only W-2 employee of my own company, and I have to pay almost 1% of my salary to a program that I can never make a claim on, right? I can't leave my company for 4 months. I wouldn't have a company. So there's a lot of people that are seeing this wide-reaching law, pushing it on every business owner in the state. And then also we have this thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of people applying for this and in leaving their work. My daughter had 2 of her teachers go on paid family medical leave for children that they or their spouse had last spring. And so public, schools, cities, counties are dealing with this. Hopefully we can overturn this because it violated the single subject clause of our Constitution. And if so, then if we can overturn it, if the Republicans have one chamber, that we could prevent it from going forward. Do you support kind of overturning this and stopping this bill? Have you heard from people? Have you been out campaigning on how bad this bill is?
Oh my goodness. It's one of the worst stressors for business right now that I hear everywhere I go in the state. And this was not like news. We fought this thing when it was on the floor. We had a Republican alternative that was complete common sense. It was a voluntary program, no statewide mandate, no new 400-person bureaucracy at deed, paid for by taxpayers, no tax. It was like, if your company doesn't offer paid leave and you want access to a product like that, you could buy into an insurance product similar to disability, and you can take paid family leave. And if employers want to contribute to that voluntarily because it's a recruiting and retention tool, great, they can do that. And that is what we need. Right. That program is operational in a few states out east. I think it's like New Hampshire and Massachusetts, maybe not New Hampshire, Vermont, maybe somewhere else. And it works. And it doesn't cost the state all this money. But Jeremy, the worst thing about this law that no one's talking about is how it impacts the employer-employee relationship, which is a social contract that has been the norm for hundreds and thousands of years. And instead, the state has inserted itself. And so now an employee applies to the state for leave. The state grants the leave, and the employer is out of the picture. It's like an upending of how employer-employee relations work, and it is going to hurt our economic growth, and it is going to hurt our society. So yeah. I wish you well, and I absolutely have fought this thing all the way down. And there's so much, like I had a fraud hearing on this in November. The fraud in this program is going to be out of control because the definitions of who can take it, for especially on the caregiver side, and the type of care that they say they're providing, it's just going to be full of fraud. And we tried to get ahead of it because, we always say stop the fraud on the front end. Indeed just sat there and like, oh, we've thought of that. That won't be a problem. I already hear a ton of fraud reports out there about this program.
Yeah, and it doesn't just impact the employer-employee relationship. It impacts employee-employee relationships.
Exactly.
In many offices where,
right.
We have a small group of people that do what we do, or I'm the only person that does what I do. If I were to leave, or if my coworker to leave, we would be burdening one another with our work because, I just talked to a chiropractor a couple days ago about this. He has 2 employees. One of them does all their billings to the insurance company. The other person's does like physical therapy, and their insurance billing person is leaving for 4 months. He can't find a temporary worker and take 3 months to train them on how to do this, and then lay them off after 4 months. Nobody wants that job. And so if you had a call center with 50 employees that were all just doing calling, you could easily offer this because people could shift their labor between the others. But in so many jobs, this is just not ideal. And it should not be forced on all companies like this. And people are going to be upset with their coworkers who left for they and 5 siblings to go take care of their mom on a cruise and, who had their hip replaced. There's going to be so much abuse about this, and it's going to cause a lot of strained relationships between employees.
Yes. Well, I'm grateful for that decision we had earlier on the single subject bill. And I think, this is a prime example of how horrible those giant omnibus bills are for society and for our state. And so I wish you well.
Yeah, thank you. We've raised $150,000, so we should have enough for our legal defense. I think I put a petition out there. I had 500 people sign it to jump on and support. And I think we're going to have at least, several dozen businesses that are impacted by this sign on, and employees, because there are employees who have been paying for short and long-term disability policies. And then now the state is taking additional money from them. Or employees that really can't even take this type of leave. And so they are also joining the lawsuit. So I hope we can get this overturned. Susan, what other questions do you have for Kristin in this segment?
I guess I think at this point, one of the biggest issues that we're facing, and I don't know if you've been asked about this in other places or not, but right before caucus, the party put out just it's internal, but it's affecting the party statewide in terms of the cost of conventions. And we're having a lot of delegates really concerned about their ability to even attend the convention because of the cost to attend and participate. And I think this is a serious issue. And I know you're not necessarily going to limit yourself to the endorsement issue in terms of running to the primary. But when we are discouraging our most active volunteers from participating in a process, which I think the PCR money should help to underwrite, this is where that money should be used, is to help control those costs. These are business meetings. And it's hurting the Republican Party. And I don't know if you're talking to people about that, if you're hearing concerns from delegates. It's a big issue, the cost.
Yeah, no, I hear about it everywhere I go. And it's a big issue for candidates. Like, they wanted us to pay $10,000 to get the Cadillac package to have all the bells and whistles. And, it's because our party is struggling and they don't have the resources raised independently. So now they're relying on the delegates. But it really is a barrier for a lot of people to be able to spend that money to not only pay the convention fee, but then pay, high season rates for hotels in Duluth, meals, traveling up there. I mean, I hear it all the time. And people are working hard for their money. They are getting hit every time they turn around by the state, and then to not even be able to really participate in our party process to change all these crazy policies because of more costs laid on them. It's not right. The party should be raising money to subsidize the cost of convention. So anybody who's elected a delegate should be able to go at a very minimal cost and participate in the process, because we're stronger when we have greater participation. And if only, a smaller pool of delegates can go because of the cost and only wealthy people can afford to go, it's hurting us as a party.
Right. So, and for the listeners, they were talking about the cost of attending the Minnesota GOP state convention, which is going to be it's a 2-day convention in Duluth. The cost to attend as a delegate is now $250 per person. And so my wife and I will likely be delegates. My daughter is an 18-year-old. She's a county delegate this year. We're talking her into potentially running to be a state delegate to learn about the process, and then bringing my other daughter as a guest, which is also a $250 fee. Right. That's $1,000 in entrance fees. If you as a
plus
statewide
hotel
candidate, if you as a statewide candidate want the endorsement, you're going to need 1,500 of the 2,500 delegates to endorse you. Those fees for your 60% of the delegation is $375,000 that they will be paying just in fees to get into the convention, plus hotels. This is money that candidates should be raising for their campaigns to beat Democrats.
Right, to beat Democrats. Let's go. I'm with you.
So it's unfortunate. And then charging statewide candidates either $5,000 or $10,000 as speaking fees at the convention to what? To weed out Ole Savior from running again, or Bob again Carney from speaking on stage.
And those fees, to be clear to the candidates, it was very clear in the documentation that you will not be allowed to participate and give a speech if you don't pay at least $5,000.
Oh, exactly. So
the delegates don't get to decide. The state executive committee is deciding. 15 people making a decision on behalf of 3,000 people, 2,500 people.
And deciding how long we speak.
Right.
And as someone who decided, to say I'm going to stay in the primary if I don't feel like the person endorsed can win, I don't get access to the list. So even for all the money I'm paying just to be able to show up on stage and speak and make my case, this whole time, I do not get the opportunity to communicate with the people who are delegates. It's ridiculous.
Well, we need to do something to either strengthen the grassroots or go to a primary-only state, but riding the fence isn't healthy for the party right now. So when we come back from the break, we'll talk again with Kristin Robbins running for governor here in Minnesota. You're listening to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot.
Nearly 250 years ago, Providence led a group of people to join together for the purpose of establishing a country to protect the rights bestowed upon mankind by God. America's founders warned the people to beware the risk of taking these rights for granted. Ronald Reagan said freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. Are we that generation? This is not our destiny. Too many people don't recognize that complacency in politics emboldens tyrants. We're at a tipping point. Will we restore the liberties we were born to preserve, or succumb to a tyranny more evil than has ever existed? It's past time to think about what action looks like. It's time to engage. Visit politicalpitchforks.com. Learn about organizations supported by patriotic, faithful people whose mission is to convert the disengaged into warriors for liberty. Find a cause, offer your time, treasure, and talent, and help us save the United States of America.
In a world full of endless screens, the best memories are still made in person. It's time to trade device time for family time. Welcome to Master Spas of Minnesota. Whether it's a relaxing soak after a long day or a high-energy family splash session, we have the perfect fit for your home at masterspas.com. Experience the latest in spa technology, featuring your choice of mineral systems or premium salt water, both designed to naturally purify your water. Paired with our advanced filtration, you'll get a crystal clear, low-maintenance experience that only takes minutes a month. That means less time cleaning and more time teaching your kids to swim, relaxing, and rejuvenating together. Now is the time to buy. Visit our Master Spas of Minnesota showrooms in St. Louis Park at 394 in Louisiana and Woodbury, 94 in Radio Drive. Your dream backyard begins at masterspas.com. Your home for family, fitness, and peace of mind.
The American people have become increasingly polarized along political lines and are now more visibly and vocally divided than ever. Because election integrity and security has never been more important to the stability of our republic, there can be no excuses for inconsistent, non-transparent, and non-secure election processes. Today, an ever-increasing number of American citizens are demanding voter ID using an official government ID, shorter election periods, or a return to a single election day, the banning of electronic voting systems that cannot be secured, the use of a paper roster at the polling places, the elimination of voter registrations in the 10 days before an election, that mail-in and absentee ballots be counted in public at the precinct of the voter, and a return to hand-counting ballots. The 2026 elections will determine whether the conservative movement will continue to lead the restoration of America's exceptionalism. Visit politicalpitchforks.com to get informed and engaged.
Okay, let's begin.
Welcome back to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot. This is Jeremy Munson with Susan Smith interviewing Kristin Robbins, candidate for governor here in Minnesota. Kristin, I want to talk about the general election because so far we've been talking about the endorsement process and the primary and how to fix fraud and stuff. But we have this looming likely candidate on the Democrat side, Amy Klobuchar, who I believe many Minnesotans think of being this kind, hot dish Amy person, but the media protected her just like they protected Governor Walz for so many years. And it was only when Amy ran for president that the national media exposed her for being this almost evil, like highest staff turnover ratio, very mean legislator in Congress. I think she had the highest turnover ratio or a staff turnover ratio of anybody in Congress. Vindictive, all these stories that came out of her nationally. Hopefully the Minnesota media won't protect her as much, but in a matchup, are you prepared to debate her, and what issues are you going to take her to task on?
Oh, absolutely. So I am used to all these fights with Democrats in committee and on the floor. I'm usually in the mix on most of these fights. So I'm very happy to take her on. And I really think she's not as solid as people like the pundits, like Cook Political Report or whatever I want to say. Sure, she does have a big war chest. She's got better name ID. But the reality is she's been in Congress a long time, and she has been AWOL on all of the big debates that would have helped Minnesota. She's never once called out the fraud. Most of this fraud is in federal Medicaid money. She's done nothing about shoring up Medicaid. And when Ilhan Omar had a bill called the Meals Act, which took all the guardrails off the school nutrition program, which enabled Feeding Our Future, she was right there all for it, right? And she also has done nothing on immigration reform, which is essential. We need the federal government to do serious immigration reform. And she's been AWOL in that debate when there have been serious proposals for more than a decade. So I know she's got great customer service in constituent service in her office, and she's well known for that. But the reality is, on big policy fights, she has stepped away from it. She's not been in the arena, and that's not what our state needs right now. We need a fighter.
Do you think that someone might be challenging her from the left for the nomination, like Aaron May Quaid or some other more socialist, liberal, younger candidates?
You know, there are certainly rumors of that swirling around the Capitol, but I do think sort of the establishment Democrats and the national Democrats are all behind her. So I don't know if someone would want to sort of take that on and ruin their political future by coming at her. Time will tell. But certainly she portrays herself as more moderate than her voting record shows. Right. And she will have to cater further left to the socialist progressive wing of her party if she's going to be in this race. So she is already, I think, tacking left by some of the statements she's been making. And so she, I don't think the Hottish Amy vibe is going to stand over the next few months.
I'm going to advise everybody. My opinion has not changed on this. It doesn't matter who the candidate is. Right now, there's a lot of time for other people to get in the race. And I believe that the Democrats are very good strategists. And I think there is a growing group of Democrats at the state and national level clearly recognizing the progressives have taken them close enough to the cliff that they need to pull it back a little bit. And if they are not preparing to bring in other candidates that we need to be ready for, who will be more moderate, who will be harder for us to beat, I just think we have to be expecting that from them, because she's not a great candidate. And she hasn't, the Republican Party has not taken seriously any of the Senate races really for a long time now. And I think it's not her history of winning is not necessarily representative of her ability to win a serious race. And she has a long history of saying things that she shouldn't have said. And I think good Republican candidates will hold her accountable for the position she's taken publicly. So I hope she's the candidate, because she doesn't represent, I don't think, mainstream Minnesota. So.
Right. Well, and she's not going to be any different than Tim Walz. Do you think she's going to roll back the tax increases? Do you think she's going to roll back any of these unfunded statewide mandates? Do you think she's going to stop the fraud or change anything structurally in the executive branch to make sure we get a handle on the fraud? Of course not. Well, she's not going to stand up to the public sector unions. No.
And I believe she has thrown her support behind Flanagan in the Senate race. And I think that is very telling, right? Because that's a serious race on the Democrat side right now. So,
yeah, I haven't heard that, but maybe you're right. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, Kristin, I have to ask you about the legislative session that started this week in Minnesota. You're still a state rep. You're chair of the fraud committee. With everything going on with the elections this fall, do you see real progress for conservatives in the legislature? And I also want to ask your opinion about Lisa Damuth, who's a Speaker of the House, also running for governor. Do you think that's going to change the priorities of the House a little bit or soften the Republicans' approach?
So as everyone knows, everything fails on a tie. So it's going to be hard to get conservative policy through the House and then through the Democrat-led Senate. So I just hope people have realistic expectations. But what we can do, and what we did last session, is we can stop a lot of the nonsense, right? So how they want to solve the budget deficit is they want to have a new 5th-tier income tax rate, 10.85%. We stopped that. Okay, we stopped a lot of their additional regulatory policies. So having the tie enables us to stop what was going on in the trifecta. So we've been able to block more of the insanity, but without a governor who's going to sign a bill and a Republican Senate, I don't think we'll pass many conservative priorities. I do think on the fraud, I'm optimistic we're going to make some progress. We got a few good fraud bills done last year with bipartisan support, and I think we're going to get that again. And with the speaker, I think it's complicated, obviously, because she's running for governor, and now she's not just working in the best interest of the House, but also thinking about her political future. And so that was one of the reasons I raised concerns that she got into the race, right? We have a shot to go from her being Speaker of a tied House to go to full Speaker of a House majority. And I do think this complicates that. And so I'm definitely keeping an eye on how things roll in session.
Yeah, and I think that the HRCC, the House Republican Campaign Committee, the political arm in supporting or trying to get a House majority, should be focused on winning a House majority. And I feel like if she's Speaker, and I think Harry Niska was put in charge of the
Harry
HRCC.
Now runs the HRCC, yeah.
But it's, they got to be laser focused on winning a majority. And I hate to see us lose. We've got 3 House members that are running for statewide office, right? You and Lisa, and also
Peggy Bennett.
And Peggy Bennett's running for governor too.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, she might have retired. And then we have somebody running for auditor too. So
yes.
So we've got 4 members down, and we need to make sure we win a majority in the House so that I can serve in a trifecta. Selfishly.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
Would love to win. Yeah. So how do people get involved with your campaign or learn more about you?
Yes. So go to the website, KristinRobbins4Governor.com, and you can fill out a little form about, how you want to get involved. And then someone on my team will call you and help plug you in. We have a lot of opportunities. There are BPOU conventions going on all over the state, and I can't be everywhere. So we try to send a volunteer who's at least staffing a table and making my presence known. So there's many ways to get involved, and we would love to have everybody on the team.
And I noticed that there's a lot of gubernatorial forums this year. It seems like more than most years.
Yeah.
And are there some around the metro now that you're in session that will be occurring?
Gosh, I know we did one in St. Paul last week. I'm assuming there's a few more coming up, but I don't have it top of my head. I know right now, like Saturday, I'm going to 3 BPOU conventions. The next Saturday, I'm doing at least 3. So we're really in convention season right now. But if I participate in as many as I can. I missed the one down in your area. There was one in Jordan, I think, that I missed. And people were like, why aren't you there? But I had already committed to be a speaker at a law enforcement dinner in my district that night, and I wasn't going to ditch my law enforcement guys. But generally, I'm at all of them.
And when do you expect to make a pick for your lieutenant governor candidate?
Closer to a convention. So we're certainly thinking about it, but I think traditionally it's done closer to convention. So yeah.
Okay.
Time will tell.
Yeah. Well, very good. Susan, you wanna wrap it up? Kristin, thank you so much for the interview today and getting to know more about your campaign.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
I want to encourage everybody to be paying attention. It's really time for Republicans to get engaged in this process. Be reading on social media, be looking at news sources, multiple news sources, both local and federal. And really importantly, if you are a person who's gone to caucus and were elected to be a delegate, I think this cost stuff is going to work itself out because I think people are starting to rise up and fight about it. We really need people to fight to become the delegates to bring our party forward in this election cycle. And so I'm just really hoping people stay engaged, stay involved, if you're not a delegate, get involved with your BPOU. And by the way, if you're a Democrat listening, you also get involved. Bring common sense back to the DFL, because that would also help our country and our state. So we need the good Democrats out there to get engaged as well. So thanks for listening to Political Pitchforks.
The preceding pre-recorded program was paid for by Political Pitchforks.
At Stock and Barrel, personal safety education isn't just something we offer. It's at the core of what we do. Our intro to handgun safety and women's self-defense classes are designed to build real-world confidence, practical skills, and responsible firearm knowledge in a supportive, professional environment. Whether you're brand new to shooting or looking to strengthen your skills, this is guidance you can trust. Stock and Barrel is proud to walk beside you on your personal safety journey. Learn more at stockandbarrel.com.
Are you an investor trying to make sense of the markets or looking to diversify out of this craziness? Listen to The Gold Show with Kenny Michaels on AM 1280, The Patriot, on Sundays at 9 a.m. Tune in for Kenny's insight on The Gold Show this Sunday morning at 9 a.m.
Take your favorite Patriot hosts with you wherever you go by downloading our app. Listen to your favorite shows, see our social media posts, enter exclusive contests, and more. Just search for AM 1280 The Patriot in the App Store. AM 1280 The Patriot is
Love animals? Then you'll love Robin's Nest, the podcast where passion meets purpose for the creatures we share our planet with. Hosted by Dr. Robin Ganzert, President and CEO of American Humane Society, each episode brings you inspiring stories of conservation breakthroughs, behind-the-scenes looks at animal rescue, and lively conversations with heroes from Hollywood to the heartland. Robin's Nest is your front row seat to the future of animal welfare. Find Robin's Nest on your favorite podcast app, where protecting animals comes to life.